Chapter 3. The underground shapes the above ground. I am looking at the role of extraction industry in Compton's ecology because this tower siege is deeply affecting the less advantaged communities as they are not prepared to push back in an invisible conflict that is threatening both the health of many Compton residents and the housing market in order to show there is an ongoing war for resources that is happening below the surface and yet it is being fought from the above ground. Part 1. Extraction. The gang conflicts that consumed Compton in the early 80s are now the least of their problems. It turns out, Compton is currently pushing back towards the extraction of resources as it deeply affects the health of the residents. They may be 98 years late, but it's never too late. Although extraction is a problem of the 21st century, it has been there since the 19th century. Now let's go back a bit in history. The first ever oil encounter in California was made on 1923 by Major Frederick Russell Burnham in the unincorporated territory of Dominguez Hills, which is only an 11-minute drive away from Compton. But how is this all relevant? Well, 6 years later, there was the famous economic depression of the 30s. Census data shows that Compton's predominantly white residents went from being farmers to industrialists in a blink of an eye, while excluding the non-white community that had no choice but to work in other industries like janitorial services. The arrival of the oil industry to Dominguez Hills was fundamental to understanding a kind of power that is still in effect today, by big corporations attempting to seize control of the underground resources. How is this possible? Part 2. The underground. Mineral rights. There are 4 main types: surface, mineral, royalty, and oil and gas rights. The important thing about this is the last one, also known as the rule of capture. If you have the mineral rights to drill a well in George's property, you have right to all the oil you can capture even if the oil is drawn from the adjoining properties of Susan and Bailey, which means that a plot of land could function as a portal to a wonderland of resources that is not constrained by municipal boundaries but by the power of the economy instead. Let's take a look at one of those portals. Inactive wells does not mean safe wells. Here's an article reporting a chemical spill in Compton. The responsibles for managing this are 2 companies, for which only one guy responded, saying he was sorry and that they were going to fix it. Bridgepoint Gardena specializes in industrial logistics, and contractor OFRS gives engineering services. Interestingly, none of the company's bios says that they work at extraction resources. The fight that Compton is putting up towards this massive belt that you see of wells is pointless because it is only being fought within the surface city limits, which is why this situation asks for a cross-scalar jurisdiction approach within horizontal and vertical connections. Aside from governmental officials, Compton power players don't live in Compton, and yet they have the power to make decisions that deeply affect the low-income city. It will stay a relatively poor city because the value of the properties are likely to stay still due to the many problems of hardcore industrialization. This enables us to think critically in the relationship between industrialists drilling for oil, environmental engineers, and real estate developers that are codifying a class discrimination housing market in Compton. How do the residents of Compton experience this? Part 3. The above ground. Research demonstrates that indeed, urban oil field development is an under-researched issue, and near communities often report symptoms such as headaches and asthma. Also, and quite interestingly, gas storage wells in the United States are located in residential suburban areas and not in commercial, industrial, or even rural areas, and related accidents have caused fatalities, fires, explosions, exposure to noxious odors, tropospheric ozone production, and releases of greenhouse gases that accelerate climate change. In parallel, according to the California Department of Conservation, Division of Oil, Gas, and Geothermal Resources, many nearby residents may be at risk of exposure to numerous toxic chemicals due to the 89 oil and gas wells in Compton. In 2015, according to the California Healthy Places Index, Compton had a clean environment score of 61%. But if we look today at the HPI report, Compton dropped to 15%. The report demonstrates that the air in Compton is not healthy due to diesel particulate matter formed as a result of burning fuel and chemical reactions that take place within the heavy industrial drilling that has happened in the region. What is interesting is that this 6-year drop coincides with the Trump administration rolling back more than 100 environmental rules, while at the same time pushing forward for drilling and extraction reforms. It could be said that there's an ongoing war for resources that is happening below the surface, and many cities like Compton in particular are fighting it from the above surface. This is a problem because the mineral laws and rights of the United States of America do not recognize municipal boundaries. They respond to larger geopolitical compositions that do not obey any form of control or dominance other than that of their private owner. This enabled big industries, like the previously discussed, to take advantage and seize control of the underground resources. This dour siege is deeply affecting the above ground, and the less advantaged communities are not equipped to defend themselves in an invisible conflict that is threatening the health and lives of many US citizens. Now, I would like to end on the following note. Considering that Compton's environmental history has always been on the sidelines of the media's interest, I wonder what would be the first steps towards achieving transitional justice for these communities devoid from the toxic political ties and agendas that have always held back the hub city's progress. If every single one of the residents of Compton had easy access to this information, what would the future of the city look like?